is now the season of Lent, where we remember Christ fasting in the wilderness and being tempted by the devil. Some people do a similar fast, either going the whole hog and removing all food from their diet, or just abstaining from a certain luxury for 40 days. In churches, it's a time to start considering one's sins, repenting, and preparing oneself for the coming festival of Easter. This year, people are having to give up a lot more than they bargained for in this current climate. They're having to give up some food products, social gatherings, sport events, pub outings, theatre trips, work, and loo rolls. This has led to panic buying and negative leans on comments about the Chinese. Having my own meals to cook, and a large number of friends in that part of the world, my efforts to calm people down and halt the rise of hate towards the Orient can label me as a naive snowflake. But it wouldn't surprise me if some people are calling this outbreak divine retribution for the sins of the East and of all mankind. I've seen similar ideas crop up with similar situations. Now, I don't like preempting people, but in this video, I'm going to be looking at the meaning of sin and how we should respond. Whenever I think over what is sin, I remember a sermon given by the great Reverend J. John when I was at Hillsong. He told of how he was in London. I think it was, he lives in London, but all big cities are the same to me. Either way, he saw a billboard advertising lingerie. The model was advertising a bit more than just lingerie. As a result, written across it, someone had written the word sin. Below that, someone else had written, "What is sin?" Below that was written suggestions from other people. You can sort of imagine it as an internet chat room with felt-tip pens. Reverend J. John disagreed with all of them. So he took out his pen, this one, and if you don't do what you know is right, you have sinned. James. With that quote from the Bible, one would think the answer is cut and dry. If one delves into the many ways we have or can sin, it seems so. Sinning by neglect and doing wrong. But that starts to bring up questions of morality and what constitutes right and wrong. Unless we can pin down what those are, sin is looking like a relative term, a flimsy excuse, or an overly grand and sinister word simply meaning naughty. So what is right and what is wrong? Surprisingly enough, when you ask some people what is sin, the 7 deadly sins naturally spring to mind. The sins of pride, envy, wrath, gluttony, lust, sloth, and greed. The last one being particularly notable in this climate. These dark, sinful states of being can certainly be made out to be wrong. But they don't help much in clarifying what is wrong about them. Yes, if you are prideful, you can go down some dark roads. Envy and wrath go hand in hand as darker intents. Lust is well known as a sinful feeling, Gluttony and greed are only different in terms of items and actions with them. Only sloth stands out as partly self-explanatory. If one lazes around all day, they are unproductive, a hindrance, and a drain on the. This brings us to the Ten Commandments, the go-to morals for Christians and Jews alike. Being written in the time of Exodus, broken by Moses in a fit of anger, rewritten, and being translated several times into different languages, their general meaning still rings out in their own way. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Have no other gods, and make no idols. Love thy neighbour as thyself. Do not take the Lord's name in vain. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Honour thy father and thy mother. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbour. And thou shalt not covet thy neighbour's ox, ass, wife, or home. Having gone for the longer ones, they are a bit open to interpretation. Due to their openness and plain statement, it's easy to see them more as guidelines rather than actual rules. This is in stark contrast to other religions and other sects. The Quran, for example, in Sharia law, it has not only definite sins, but set consequences for those sins. While certainly harsher than most religious attitudes, and certainly one I'd rather not be in Britain, it makes up for it in a lack of ambiguity. If you do it wrong, this will happen. Straightforward, and a bit of stick behind it. Granted, some of the Ten Commandments are straightforward. Don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, and don't commit adultery. Loving God isn't unexpected, but it's worthwhile considering what this means in this case. As I mentioned in my last video, God is better than us, and is the best example of good we have. With this, we can define God as the idea of good, and the standard we should follow. Loving God is therefore loving the idea of goodness. With the additions of not killing, stealing, lying, or sleeping around, we get a better sense of the ideals that God wants us to aim for, focusing our faith on one God whose goodness itself, and denouncing all other gods, helps keep us on the right track. Idol worship is a different one. Idol in this instance is an earthly creation that one looks up to or worships. If that idol is human, then it's important to remember that humans are imperfect, and so some things are not to be followed explicitly. Making an image of God can make clear what your interpretation of God is, and so people understand where one is coming from in one's position. I look to worship leaders who write original songs for that reason, personally believing one can't lie in a song. However, it is easy to fall into the trap of worshipping the idol rather than the idea behind what the idol represents. Many great philosophers have put their names on t-shirts, hoodies, and bags, resulting in the philosophy they put forwards becoming a brand, which could lead to the original idea being lost thanks to this consumer-based society. A phenomenon I call 40-second branding. Those who read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you can see where I'm going with this. With the internet, these issues spread like wildfire. Social media pages on celebrities or groups can come in varieties that emphasize this. Official ones are nearly always run by the group or the individual themselves for the benefit of others. Unofficial are often fan-based. Personal are always the personal ones of the idol or other people. And appreciation societies, where they're often shared by someone who has similar ideals to the person they are idolizing. However, on occasion, the people who run these pages have a different viewpoint from the icon they are running the group to idolize. This can lead to differing opinions on smaller issues within the overall goal of the group, and can in some cases run counterpoint to those of the idol. An example is using current affairs to push hate towards a certain group who they've been hating for a good long while, using this only as fuel to grow the fire. On top of this, it is valuing earthly things that can make one forget about the great goodness himself. Taking the Lord's name in vain is an example of making light about the good Lord. This is linked to another of the commandments. Don't covet earthly things, like someone else's cow, wife, or house. Certainly having too much to carry makes it harder to move around, if needs be. As a backpacker, I know this all too well. But now we've hit a bit of a snag. Why is this a good thing? Why is killing people wrong? And why does it matter if we don't commit adultery? If we look to the original Hebrew word for sin, chata, it literally translates to mean to fail or to miss the goal. Sadly, this is where the Bible comes up short and doesn't give us a plain response. What is the goal? And where are we failing? God may be the goal, but how are we failing? We have to find a definition for sin that comfortably incorporates the Ten Commandments and all the biblical teachings in one. For this, we need to look at the Ten Commandments in a different light. First, we need to ask what all the prohibited actions have in common. Killing, stealing, lying, taking the Lord's name in vain, sleeping with others, and wanting others' possessions. All of these can be narrowed down to two things: a lack of respect and selfishness. We can link all these together with the 7 deadly sins. Being angry at someone and losing respect can lead to killing them in wrath. Many of us have been tempted before. Being prideful and boasting about yourself can lead you lying about yourself and about your deeds, and putting others down, disrespecting people and the truth. Wanting another's possessions shows discontent with your lot, and can even lead to being greedy and taking what you don't actually need, whilst not considering the needs of others. Gluttony falls in the same category there. Sleeping around is not respecting the choices of the person you're sleeping with, their spouse, or even your own spouse. When we add the commandment about honouring one's mother and father and loving one's neighbour, we find they fit into the mould well enough. The only one that doesn't immediately fit is keep the Sabbath, which is the day of rest, and contrasts with Slothfulness, being overly restful. If you remember, however, that the Sabbath is on the 7th day of the week, and all the other 6 are working days, sloth being a sin makes sense, because you're not helping anyone, draining resources needlessly, and just lazing around. It fits nicely, and all in all, rounds out the whole list. So what can cover all of this, and yet still meet the definition of sin given in the letter to James? As far as my studies have told me, my definition of sin, as far as I can tell from this study, sin can be defined as deliberately perform an act or deed for personal gain that negatively affects one or more individuals, be it directly or indirectly. This includes abstaining from an act, as not doing something to prevent it can do just as much harm as doing the thing itself. This can be on all levels of experience that we can have on earth, that being physical, mental, emotional, circumstantial, and in part spiritual. So now we have a definition of sin. At this time, we need to be particularly aware of how our actions affect others. Loading our trolleys with tons of food without regard for what others could eat, and stocking up on unnecessary amounts of loo rolls, especially when you bear in mind diarrhea isn't a symptom of corona, it's a lung condition. And also allowing or contributing to the build-up of hate towards a nation who have been suffering longer and more so than we have. All this makes it seem like we are asking for divine retribution. But this is a time of fear. Can we be a bit gentler on those sinning? If we look at the deadly sins, we find in themselves that they aren't as sinful as we may think. We can take pride in something like a good cake, knitting, hitting the archery target, actually hitting the goal, or having pride in others for doing the same. We can get angry now and then, and rant about it a lot. But as long as we don't bottle it up, or take it out on others in destructive ways, then we can have our moments of frustration. Me and my friends do that a lot. We can indulge on occasions in drinks and food, but not at the expense of others. Relaxing at an appropriate time is a good idea, especially as at the end of a working week, we need a rest. Lust is the main drive behind reproduction, so investing in a chastity belt isn't necessary at this stage. Admiring someone's possessions and wanting them can lead people to build up skills, work hard, and earn the right to own them. Along the way, learning the value of the items and not just seeing them as toys that they can earn as presents. So, at this time, what can we do? Well, we can address one commandment we didn't go into much. The second commandment: love thy neighbour as thyself. This is a stereotypical C of E response to any situation. This is backed up in Scripture, particularly as it is mentioned at Easter. The new commandment given by Jesus himself to disciples after the Last Supper, where he consecrated the new covenant. A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another. As I have loved you, so should you love one another. By this shall all men know you are my disciples, if you love one another. Stereotypical Anglican stuff. It means a lot. Sharing the love with everyone at this time can be difficult when we're locked in our own houses to prevent the spread of the virus. But just keeping those most at risk at arm's length is the best thing right now, as well as only getting what we need at a sensible level. For example, just today I had to go to the shops for some butter. I only need one box of butter, just one. After all, as A. A. Milne once wrote, no one, said the king, can say that I'm a fussy man, but I do like a little bit of butter for my bread. So don't overload your trolley with blue rolls, oats, rice or beans. More importantly, remember that whilst the virus came from China, they did tell us how dangerous it is, give us plenty of warning about it, and we were able to put our measures in place to keep people safe. So I implore you, if you see any hate-laced comments directed at those people who helped us, who gave us warning about the virus, please don't stand for it. Don't ignore it. Report it. Get those people dealt with. My grandfather's generation had the Blitz. The generation before him had the First World War and the trenches. Generations before had far worse. This is our time of crisis. This is the time when our generation needs to stand up and be one who will shine bright on the family tree. This is our time to stand tall and be worthy of the admiration of our grandchildren. Please share the love with everyone. If you notice similar things that I have, not just panic buying, not just reckless buying, but also the xenophobic comments, please mention it in the comments below. Perhaps even share this video with them so they know they are being outed. If you want to stay up to date with these videos, please click subscribe. Next week is going to be a slightly different video. If you want to see why, the subscribe button will help you keep up to date if you click the notification bell, obviously. Or you can keep an eye on my social media pages. I'm on Facebook at Warrior Pilgrim and Instagram at Warrior Pilgrim. Until then, give this video a thumbs up, share the love, and God be with you, my friends.